Looking into it. We are
Hello,
live.
everybody.
Hi.
Everybody that's joining us. I haven't done this for a while, so I decided since I got nothing better to do on this Canada Day, I'm going to do a live stream and just hang out with some friends. So joining me today, we've got Alicia from Birdie in the Books and Strange Mentality Paper. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be fun. I have no plan whatsoever on how we're doing this, no format. It's just going to be let's nerd out about books because we all love books, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're on this platform. And let's just talk about it. So, how's our reading been going this year? Oh, and Hartwell
Um,
is here just joining us. Thank you for joining us. Hi.
Hello.
And Melissa from Hartwell here is here. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. How
Yeah.
y'all doing?
Good.
Oh, and my dog just pulled my camera down. Hold on. Oops. We'll get that fixed. Hopefully she won't trip over the camera again. Hey Jenny, how you doing? Thanks for joining in on the stream and dropping into the chat.
Hi.
All right, so first thing, let's start with what's the best book we've all read this year? Who wants to go first?
Ooh.
um, that's a hard one. I mean, Sunrise on the Reaping, maybe.
I've heard good things
I
about
loved that one. The new
I'm
Hunger
reading it in
Games one, but I
August.
don't know if I would say that's the best one I've read. But yeah.
I think you were saying that you were doing like a Hunger Games readathon and kind of going through. Have you started that yet?
I'm starting that tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
And
Oh, it's
then,
starting at tomorrow. Okay.
yeah. But when I was reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes before I got on here, and I'm 5 pages from the end. So yeah.
I just
Nice.
started Ballad today.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's very
I
different.
might,
Yeah.
I might get to that eventually. I have read The Hunger Games. It's been a while, but I might get to that eventually. Right now, I'm working through. I'm on the second book of the Revelation Space series by Alistair Reynolds,
Okay.
I know
which
that
it
name.
is. Yeah, it's one of those kind of long-term scope type stories. It's not like a typical sci-fi space story that takes place in a short amount of time, but so much sci-fi they have like this faster than light warp drives and stuff like that. Hey Chas, thanks for joining us. So with the Revelation Space, it does in fact it covers literally centuries. So when they're traveling through space, they're often like cryogenically frozen. It's decades later when they get to their destination. So it's a much more kind of expansive type timeline with the Revelation Space. But so far, I'm really enjoying it. For the most part, the first one I gave it 3.5 stars, but that's still good for me. What about for yourself? What are you currently reading, Alicia?
I am in the middle of so many books, which shows you how chaotic my life is right now. I just started Mason Dixon by Thomas Pynchon, I think.
Oh, okay.
A friend in real life told me to read it, so I'm reading it, even though it's like 800 pages. I'm reading David Copperfield. I just started The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes for Amanda's read along. And what else am I reading? Oh, I'm reading. I'm taking part in Jane Austen July. I'm reading. What is it called? It is a cozy mystery retelling of one of Jane Austen's books.
Interesting.
They're fun. They're like middle. They're like YA. They're really fun. It's the son of Elizabeth and Darcy, and the daughter of Henry Tilney. They meet up and they solve crimes, and it's really fun.
Yeah. I love those kind of like fanficky type.
I highly
novels.
recommend it. They're by Claudia Gray. The first one's called The Murder of Mr. Wickham.
Okay.
They're fun. I'm reading the third one now, and it's called The Perils of Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Okay.
And I think that's everything. Yeah. But I just finished one of my favorite books of the year this morning, so I'm excited.
It's awesome.
What was it?
I've heard so much about Jane Austen, and I've never read any Jane Austen.
Me
ever.
either. I was supposed to read it.
Wow, that surprises me.
I've never read
Really?
it. I've never read it.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't read Jane Eyre until 2022. Yeah, 2022. I think no, 2021. Yeah, I was surprised by how much I loved it. I don't really like that Victorian literature. It's very flowery and overdone.
I was a weird kid. I was reading that like stuff at like 9, 8, and 9.
Welcome back.
I was a
I
very
was
weird
supposed
child.
to read Sense and Sensibility in college, but read a few. Like I got to the part where one of the sisters twisted her ankle, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't.
Marianne,
do this.
yeah.
That was Marianne who twisted her ankle.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I can't do this.
We were just chatting about what we were talking about or what we were reading about. Oh, I'm getting my words. What we're currently reading. What are you reading, Melissa?
I actually just put on the back burner Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio.
Yes.
I'm going to try
really
again
enjoyed
next year. Yeah, I'm going to try again next year. I don't think this is the year, just because of like so many things that are happening in my life. But I'm also reading. It's an indie book by Brian Asher. Something Kingdom. He sent it to me last month, and I can't remember the name, but I'm in the middle of it. It's something Kingdom, the Cursed Kingdom, maybe. I'm only a couple chapters into it so far, but it's like a progressive fantasy. So,
Okay.
I've never read progressive fantasy before, so it's like new to me. But I'm enjoying it so far.
It's hard to get used to the progression fantasy type thing.
Yeah.
It's a little trippy at first.
No,
I tried the Wandering In and made it like I read it all online, and it was good, but then it would be like the character's sitting in a chair and she sees like +3 endurance pop up over her head, and it's like, what?
Yeah, thankfully this one hasn't done any of that. It's more like a dungeon style kind of story. Like I feel like it pulls from it, but it's not like how like the lit RPG progression fantasies are actually done. It just kind of feels like it might be just pulling inspiration from them. But I've only tried reading like 2 lit RPGs, and I DNF those because I wasn't into the stat thing either. So yeah.
I don't even know if I'd like progression fantasy. Honestly, I've never read a progression fantasy. I just haven't. I've never picked one up. I've never thought about it. And
Dungeon
I'm a
Crawler
fantasy
Carl
nerd.
is exploding.
Yeah, I bought Dungeon Crawler Carl.
I'll try to keep that in mind. I am trying to read more science fiction because when I first got addicted to reading, I was reading nothing but sci-fi, and then it eventually progressed to fantasy, and then I realized I hardly read any sci-fi anymore. And so I'm trying to read more science fiction. So that's when I picked up the Revelation Space series, and I just also recently finished the first 2 books in Children of Time and Children of Chaos by Adrian Tchaikovsky, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Tchaikovsky.
Tchaikovsky. Yeah. There you go.
Don't worry, Drew. I mess it up all the time too.
Yeah.
So,
I really struggle with YA or with sci-fi unless it's YA for some reason. Like Neil Shusterman writes really good YA sci-fi. I've only read the first Scythe book, but I read all of Unwind and loved it. Obviously,
the second one is my favorite out of that trilogy.
What is
Thunderhead? The second one.
Thunderhead.
Yeah.
Okay. I read Skinjacker too. Ever Lost, Ever Found, Ever Wild. It seemed like that one is more like paranormal. It's like about this purgatory for kids.
Weird.
It is very weird. but Unwind just seems to fly under the radar with all the other YA dystopian stories, and it's so good. It's the one where like you can retroactively abort your kid and harvest their organs, and like you
Oh,
That is
take
just
their body
weird.
apart, and it's
But I
good.
like weird. I like weird, but that is weird.
I give
I,
that
I
a try. I never heard of that one from him.
Yeah, I know. No, almost no one's ever heard of it, but it's really good. I don't. I guess because it came out the same year as the Hunger Games, it might have been just really overshadowed.
It's all under that like
Yeah,
weird time.
but
that might, yeah.
it's okay. So it takes place in the near future. I don't think we're like given a year, but probably like 2060 or something. And it's right after the Second Civil War, which was fought over reproductive rights. So abortion is completely outlawed in the United States. But as a compromise to end the war, they allow you to unwind a troubled teen, meaning you take all of their body parts and like donate them to people in need. So their body they're not like technically being killed, they're living in a divided state. And so, yeah, it's about these kids that are going to get unwound.
And when
And
did this come out?
2007, I think.
Oh my,
Yeah.
yeah, I was in high school then. Yeah.
Although strangely enough, the Second Civil War reason that you mentioned seems highly plausible right now. At
It
the
kind
risk
of
of getting
does.
into politics.
Oh, and
Yeah.
I read this. I was reading this with my class. Yeah, first published 6 November 2007.
My
But I
goodness.
was reading this. It was I didn't choose it. It was assigned by the district right before Roe versus Wade got overturned in 2022. So we read it after the state testing. So we were just kind of like taking our time to waste the rest of the school year, for lack of a better term. And yeah, it was like as soon as we started reading that, it got leaked that Roe versus Wade was about to be overturned, and then it happened.
Yeesh.
Crazy. That's just nuts.
Yeah,
So
I think he's obviously best known for Scythe, but Unwind is really good.
Scythe's actually on my radar to eventually get to. I've heard a lot of really good things about Scythe.
It's really really good, and the
It
audiobook
is.
is good.
Yeah, it's really good.
I love the
I've read the whole
concept.
trilogy. It's good.
I love the concept behind Scythe. I think that's a really unique concept. When it comes to any type of genre, I love genres that aren't about. I love stories set in certain genres that aren't necessarily about that genre, like sci-fi. I
Mhm.
enjoy reading sci-fi, but if it's all about the science, then and it's no fun. I want a science fiction setting that's telling a
Mhm.
story that's not really about the science. It's part of why I love stories like Dune. Admittedly, I was kind of disappointed on my reread toward the end of that, but the general ideas in Dune, love them. Right? It's why I love Star Trek. It's not about the sci-fi, right? And fantasy that's just all about the magic, probably not going to enjoy it as much. You're using that fantastical world setting to tell a really great story that's not about the genre itself. So those are the kind of stories that I really enjoy, that are the most fun to watch, whether we're doing that on media, TV, movies, or whatever, or reading it in a book. So there's just so many good ways to start. That's the great thing about science fiction and fantasy, I find, is that they supply a setting where you could go beyond the realms of realism to tell so many different types of stories, and that's why I thoroughly enjoy those two genres myself. What about all of you? Like, what do you find you like about those genres?
Um, Sci-fi has been hard for me. Sorry, I got a bad back. My back is like hurting me. That's why I'm squirming. But I have a hard time with sci-fi, adult sci-fi. I am not quite sure why I gravitate towards fantasy. I'm a fantasy and historical fiction are my two genres. But um probably the way the themes are portrayed in such a fantastical setting. You've got that separation, but at the same time, it can still be relatable without having to be like similar to reality.
I think I still consider myself like a baby sci-fi reader. I didn't really start getting into sci-fi until like a year or two ago. And when it starts to become like hard science and they get like very scientific with everything, that's when I get pulled out of the book. And I know that's how like sci-fi started, because I've read some classic sci-fis and I'm like, I don't understand a single thing inside this book. It's all just science stuff. Um, but when it turns into like the space operas and you kind of get like this fantasy feel within your sci-fi story, it just takes place in like space and you've got aliens and spaceships and battles or whatever. Like that's when I find them interesting. But like once you start getting to like the philosophical or this hard science of it, that's when I start to pull out of it and I'm like, this is not the sci-fi book for me.
Oh, sure. I don't mind the occasional hard sci-fi. It can be fun to kind of read the techno babble, so to speak. But when that becomes the primary focus of the book, it kind of loses that interest. The Martian's a really good example of one that I felt was a good hard sci-fi, where the hard sci-fi didn't pull away from the story. It was really interesting to see how this guy stranded on Mars was analyzing everything that he had and what he needs to do to survive. So it kind of added to the story, and I thought that was a really well written hard sci-fi because it really helped you understand his thought process and what he was doing. Okay, I got these things, this here and that there. This is what I need to do to make this work, or I'm not going to survive. So that was a really good hard sci-fi, in my opinion.
So I have trouble understanding what the difference between hard and soft sci-fi is, but to my understanding, it's like hard sci-fi is where without the science, the story couldn't exist. So I guess, but I was like, okay, so The Martian is hard sci-fi. Somebody told me it was like, no, that's more like popcorn sci-fi. I was like, what? It's
I feel like there's so many like subgenres into genres that make it more difficult to figure out what's
it's kind of like the difference between a hard and soft magic systems, but superimposed on science fiction.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either. So
like with the hard sci-fi, like it really focuses on the scientific explanation behind the technology in the books.
So like Jurassic Park?
Yeah, it talks about the genetic engineering and stuff like that, right? Whereas soft sci-fi, I would say the Star Trek is soft sci-fi. They have all this marvelous technology, but the show doesn't focus on the technicalities of how that technology works. They throw the occasional technobabble in there, but that's not really the focus of the show. It's just, this is the technology, this is the universe they live in. We don't need to explain how the transporters work or how the warp core works or stuff like that. It's just an inherent part of the universe that you're in. Star Wars would also be another great example of what I would call soft sci-fi, though kind of bridges between science fiction and fantasy. So whereas hard sci-fi definitely gets to the more technical psychobabble behind that. So that's kind of, I don't know if that makes sense. Does that kind of help clarify, or am I being all way out there?
Now that I've got Jurassic Park being hard sci-fi in my head and then Star Wars being soft, it makes a little bit more sense.
All right. We got a question here. What do you all like to read? Favorite author? Let's go.
I have a list.
Don't we all, right?
My favorite author is Emma Donoghue.
Room Emma Donoghue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she wrote Room. That's probably what she's most famous for. But she writes a lot of historical fiction. My favorite book, The Pull of the Stars, she wrote it came out in 2020. Total Coincidence is about Spanish flu. She began writing it in 2018 for the 100-year anniversary, and then it gets released in August of 2020. Yeah, in the middle of COVID. So that was my introduction to her. I read another one of her historical fiction books called Slammerkin, based on it's like an imagination of this real life girl. Her name was Mary Saunders. She was a real person, and she was a 16-year-old prostitute in the 18th century who was hanged for killing her mistress, I guess the person who was in charge of her. And the motive for the murder was Like she wanted fine clothing. And it sounds it's a very strange book. It's very dark, but yeah, it's really good. And then The Pull of the Stars is about this nurse working on a maternity ward over 3 days. So it's October 30th, October 31st, and November 1st, 1918, during Spanish flu pandemic, in a maternity ward while everything's going on.
I want to try her newest one because it's about Anne Lister. I don't know what
Emma
it's called.
Donahue?
Yeah, I don't know what the newest one is, but I know it's about Anne Lister, and she's just fascinating.
Yeah. Let me see. She writes really quickly too. Like she comes
Yeah.
out.
She
Her
churns
books
them
are
out.
not. You might also know. I don't know the movie. I haven't seen it, but evidently it's a popular movie, The Wonder, about the girl in Ireland who stops eating, and it takes place from the point of view of a nurse.
No, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't.
All right, everyone, take note of these names so that you can go check them out after the stream. All right, Alyssa, yeah, you're up next. What do you like to read? What's your favorite author, or who is your favorite author?
Oh, I have a 3-way tie. I'm just sticking to authors who are alive. S.A. Cosby has become one of my favorites. He is a mystery thriller author. And Stephen Graham Jones is my favorite horror author of all time.
I got to get into some Stephen Graham Jones. I've heard so much, but horror's not generally my go-to.
If it's not your go-to, but you like the idea of like vampires, try Buffalo Hunter.
I will keep that in mind. Vampires can be good, depending on. They can be written poorly and good.
It's so good. I read it in 24 hours. I couldn't put it down.
Excellent. All right, Hartwald, you're up next.
I obviously like my fantasy. In fantasy, he only has 2 books out right now, and it's just because the third he's struggling with, and that would be Nicholas Ames, who did Kings of the Wild. Yes. I absolutely love the series, and while it's only the 2 books he has, because the follow-up Bloody Rose, he's definitely a top favorite. But I also enjoy John Gwynne as well. And then for historical, it's more like the mythology-based historical books, so like Greek mythology. I love Madeline Miller. I still have yet to read Song of Achilles, but I've read Circe and her short story Galatea. Her most recent one is on the back burner right now because she's suffering from long COVID, which sucks, but definitely really, really enjoy her works and like the way that she portrays the retellings of the Greek mythologies. And then just to throw it out there, a self-pub author that I have read everything they've released so far that I love is T.A. Bruno. He does sci-fi. He did the Song of Kamaria series, and then he has a solo called Down Below Beyond. And I really enjoy them. I like the aliens that he comes up with and like the ideas, and they're a lot of fun to read through. And if he ever decides to release another book, I will be there to get it.
Awesome. Well, I guess it's my turn now. Anybody who's watched my channel content, you've heard me talk about this author so much, Brandon Sanderson. Like, he's my go-to. I will buy everything he's written. I will read everything he's written, even if I haven't actually loved everything he's written. So I will say that as my favorite author, there are some things like White Sands, which we don't talk about.
That was my introduction to his work, and I was like, wow, this guy is terrible. And then I found out he was like a darling within the book world.
Oh my gosh. I would never, ever recommend anybody introduce themselves to Sanderson with White Sands. The reason I got White Sands was because I needed it to complete the Cosmere collection. But
I got it randomly from the library.
It is not.
I got them on Comixology, Kindle Unlimited. I read them. And I really liked them. I want a prose version, but evidently he's not doing them anymore. My intro to Sanderson was Tress, and I loved it. That was the first Sanderson book I read. Tress of the Emerald Sea.
He had that one short story. It was available through, I think, one of his Kickstarters is like Cold Case in Longdow or something like that. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. Just terrible. As much as I love Sanderson, I'm not one of those guys that says everything he writes is perfect. Yeah. But yeah, just sometimes even our favorite authors don't put something out that isn't great. So those are the two Sandersons I'd say just don't waste your time reading them. For sure. Also, if you've only read White Sands, please pick up something else by Sanderson that's actually good. Electress, Warbreaker, start there, then maybe get into the Mistborn. Trust me, they're far superior to White Sand.
Well, I own the first Mistborn, and then I own Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. His book, The Sunlit Man, I was actually super interested in that one. I was like, the idea that it sounded so cool, and then everyone was like, you have to be like super immersed in Cosmere, or else so many things will be spoiled, or you'll be confused about things.
That's what I don't like.
Exactly, and I got so
you have to read 18 books to friggin' read a book. Sorry,
exactly.
I have very
well said, Alicia.
Yeah, no, it bothered me too. It made me so mad.
Like I basically gave away all my Sanderson books after that. I'm like, I'm done. And I read book 1 of the archive, whatever, and I'm sorry, and if this offends someone, I'm sorry, but it's Bible fanfic.
I couldn't get through Stormlight.
It's Bible fanfic. And as someone who grew up Catholic, it's Bible fanfic.
Oh, there was one Bible fanfic that I read. It's like, can't remember what it's called. Something like Biff, Jesus's, unknown brother or cousin or something.
I would read that. That sounds like fun.
I read something one like called The Red Tent.
Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I read that when I was younger.
The Gospel According to Biff. It was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
I've just been and this isn't because I think Brandon Sanderson seems like a nice guy. He seems great. Like I want him to exist because he churns out books, but the book doesn't have to be that damn long. Like, for the love of everything, the books don't have to be 1,400 pages.
That is very true.
No, it's true. Even I had that criticism of Wind and Truth, and I was saying like one character's whole side arc in that, and I put this in my review, and I've talked about it, is it was interesting to read. I enjoyed that character's side quest story. But you could have taken that completely out of the book and it wouldn't have made 1 ounce of difference to how the overall plot evolved in that book. You could have taken that out, published it as like one of the novellas or shorter books in between the books that he has out.
See, that's like chop them down into like 400-page installments. Stop doing these like Bible thick, the thinnest paper because they can't print them because he won't. I swear they don't edit him anymore, and that pisses me off. As someone that used to work as a copy editor, it pisses me off. I'm sorry, your favorite author needs to be edited. Most books that come out now need to be edited, and that is the problem.
Yeah, Incarnations of Immortality, just coming up in the comments here. I actually started reading that series, but I DNF'd the series. I didn't even get through I think I read the first 2 books, and then by the third one, it's like, no, I'm done. I love the concept behind Incarnations of Immortality. A lot of people like this series, but I just found that each book was just rehashing the same plot with different character each time. And it had the same basic structure, the same formula. And it's just, for me, that one was... I can't keep reading the same book over and over again. That's what it started to feel like. And so I had to DNF that one. For those that loved it, awesome. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, but It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, people found out I don't like Sanderson, so I had some pretty nasty comments left on some of my videos because I don't like Sanderson. Yeah. Gotta love people.
Oh, I don't have any advice for you there, Jenny, about getting your niece to become a reader. I just set the example and hope my kids will follow. That's about
A
it.
variety of books. You gotta
Well,
have.
and find out what they like. Like if
Yeah.
my younger brother struggled with reading when he was younger, and now he loves graphic novels. So I buy him a ton of graphic novels.
Yep.
If he wants it, I buy it. It gets him reading, and he got him into other stuff. Like sometimes you
Great.
need to find like something that they like let's say on TV, and find a novelization of it, and sometimes that can spur something.
Yeah.
Sure. Great question. Do you hope that in the future young people will love books and literature? There is a growing trend where the younger generation isn't reading it's nearly as much
Because they
as
can't.
older generations, which to me is sad. I want to see younger generations have an absolute love for reading books and stories. And I really hope that that trend reverses itself eventually.
We need to stop
Because,
banning books.
Yep.
yeah,
That's the problem. Most of
It
the
is.
books that
Well,
kids need to
it's a
read are
lot.
being.
It's a lot. Just speaking from the point of view of a teacher, children don't know how to read anymore, and a lot of that I think can kind of fall on the parents too. And it's just the pure apathy of children is just crazy. Just how little they care. With, I mean, and they'll straight up say on some of their assignments, just be like, "I don't care. Give me a 0."
brutal.
It was that way when I was in high school, and
Yeah.
it's only
Yeah.
seemed to get
But now it's just so
gotten
much
worse.
easier to cheat, and so many people like so
I've
the
actually had the
industry. I will say, in education is just so oblivious to how much kids are cheating nowadays.
And I also
With,
feel like a lot of kids were pushed through because of
they are.
in the, being in the pandemic. I feel like a lot of kids were like, there's no room for what's the right word for them to like learn where they possibly didn't because of learning from home.
Well, they don't hold kids back anymore.
Yeah, that part.
I've
And
had the conversation with my daughter. She's 16, and when she was younger, like elementary school, she loved reading, and we would read together all like at night and everything, do different things. And then as she got into junior high and high school, she started to read less and less. And I had asked her, I was like, what is it about reading that you're not like into right now? And she's like, school ruins it.
yeah,
Like she
I
doesn't like
agree.
the assigned readings that they give. Like the last book that they had been assigned to read that she actually did enjoy was Romeo and Juliet. But then
Yeah.
everything else throughout the year she despised. Like she couldn't get into it. She would ask me for help,
yeah.
since I'm a reader. So, she's like, can you help me with this reading assignment? Because like I can't get into this book. Like it's so old that I don't care about what it's trying to teach me. Like I think that's the other thing too is that school systems are so stuck on the classics that they're
Yeah.
not bringing in new material that fits more in line with the way kids are nowadays.
Yeah.
And so they do, these kids, they get these books and they're just like, I don't care. I don't want to read this.
Why is my brother who's going to go in is going into 6th grade reading Moby Dick?
Yeah,
Like,
see,
no.
exactly.
Like
Why?
no.
I'm going to be teaching 6th grade coming up, and we're doing How to Train Your Dragon. So
Perfect.
That makes more
Perfect.
sense.
yeah,
We're like
Question
I know
for Amanda.
it's just
Sorry to interrupt, but a good question for Amanda.
how do you decide what books to get for the kids in your class? BookTube. A lot of it is BookTube. Yeah, so I had a student brag to me. He was a senior. This was a couple years ago. That he'd only ever read one chapter book in his entire life. But back when he was in my class before, because I've taught like all grades, the school system is a mess, and I'm cool. But I mainly was a 9th grade teacher for 5 years. But I had seniors. I got moved around a lot. And so he said he liked Unwind that we were reading together as a class. And a book I had found on BookTube, they both die at the end, I had in my classroom. I was like, oh, YA sci-fi. It's kind of in the same vein as Unwind. And so I was like, okay, here, just try this one. And he comes back to me and he's like crying because he couldn't believe he had read an entire chapter book in a week. But on top of that, one thing I didn't, so he's gay and he's Hispanic, and the two main characters are both queer Hispanics, and like that touched him a lot. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, they are. So a lot of it is gauging the students' personalities,
and their reading levels.
Yeah, you have to have stuff below their reading level. If you get stuff on reading level, it's hard. And like the average American reads on like a 6th grade reading level anyway.
So important to gauge them with content that's relevant to them. That's what's going to get them interested in it.
Well, I mean, we did Stardust, not exactly relevant, but they loved it. That was before the whole Neil Gaiman situation, but yeah. Stardust was our class read in 2023. Yeah.
I know one of the high schools here is doing they're doing Kindred for like I think it's 10th and 11th grade, but they're also going to read along with it the Kindred graphic novel. And I love the idea of like reading the graphic novelization along with the classic. Yeah. Maybe that's a way a kid could understand it if they're not understanding the language that's being used.
Oh, definitely. I think
that was just too easy.
Last year, my daughter's teacher assigned her the Brandon Sanderson's Firefighter Steelheart book series, The Reckoners. So she read the first book in the series for her class. Yeah. Well, when she told me, it's like she said, "Hey, Dad, I'm reading this book, and I'm pretty sure you have it. I'm reading it for class." And she told me it was the Reckoners book, and I took one look at it. I'm like, "Yeah, that's the Reckoners. That's awesome." It's like, yeah, apparently my teacher's a Sanderson fan. I'm like, I'm liking this teacher. But the funniest thing was when she was reading it, eventually at one point, she just comes to me and said, "Why, Dad? Why did he do that to me? She's talking about a character that died. And she's like, well, how could he do that to me? This is no fun. See, this is why I don't like to read, because I can't have my heart like that." And I just started laughing. She's like, "Why are you laughing? I'm going through trauma right now."
We had to read like Where the Red Fern Grows and Bridge to Terabithia. And like, you want to talk about like that type of trauma?
Yeah, that's trauma right there. I cried. Okay, so middle school, like the Civil War is a huge part of 8th grade curriculum in the state of Texas. 7th grade, it's Texas history. 6th grade, it's like world history. So I cried when we read in 8th grade Across 5 Aprils. And then I reread it as an adult because I wrote a novel that took place in the Civil War. And I was like, oh, I remember loving this. I read it, and there's like this character, the main character's sister is in a friggin' like romantic relationship with his 20-year-old teacher. Ew. And the sister's 14. I'm like, how did they get away with teaching this in school for so long? This is like so creepy. Ew. Yeah, Bridge to Terabithia. I remember reading that one in class.
I've actually only seen the movie for Bridge to Terabithia. I've never read the book. My sister did, and she was
as well.
Yeah, my sister read the book and watched the movie, and she was like, "I didn't need to be traumatized twice, but I guess that's what I'm doing."
But is it Logan Lerman, or is it the boy who played Peeta in the Hunger Games? Played Jesse in that. What's his name? Josh Hutcherson? I think it was.
Yeah, the guy who played Peeta.
That's Peeta. He was the main character in that movie.
Yeah,
I remember that. Then I think also, I don't know, the book. I can't recall books traumatizing me too much in school. I don't know. I remember reading Where the Red Fern Grows, and all the boys were crying, and I wasn't crying.
Yeah,
well, it's crazy some of the content in these books that are out there for sure. I am never in favor of censorship by any degree, personally. But like you had mentioned, how did they get away with using these books in schools, considering some of the content? And it kind of made me think, like, we put ratings on TV shows for content warnings.
Why don't books have a rating system?
Thank you.
Any kid can walk into a bookstore, buy any book, and not having a clue what the content is. And the stuff that we accept in books, we would not accept as being
okay. Oh my gosh, the romance novels.
Game of Thrones, for example, they had to age the characters.
Monster Calls. A Monster Calls made me cry. I read that
A
in
Monster Call
2020.
made me openly weep in public.
Yeah.
And I was an adult reading it.
Yeah, I was an adult
Yeah.
too. I've thought about doing that in the class as well, because I really like magical realism. A Monster Calls made me cry, and then a Salt to the Sea made me cry too.
How
That's
is
one.
that? Okay, how is that YA? That made me like. She put you through it. I'm like, how the hell is this YA?
I don't know.
Read this. It's
I
a
mean, I
great
guess
book.
the graphic violence isn't like on the page. It's all
No,
kind of
but
after.
it's just like it's
Yeah, that
I'm
one
like,
got
oh,
me.
the
That
ugly
was like a
crying.
serious cry too.
I was ugly crying.
Yeah. And then Sunrise on the Reaping made me cry. So I went from 2021 and like November when I read um Salt to the Sea until like March of this year, not crying from a book. But Sunrise on the Reaping made me cry.
Not many books make me cry. I'm much more of like films make me cry more often than books.
Yeah.
I think it's the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they put that nice soundtrack in there, you know, and sets the mood more.
Books will have me choked up, but there's very few that I've legitimately cried.
You know,
I cried during a lot of books, but I'm sensitive.
Salt to the Sea didn't get me. I feel a little heartless with that one. I mean, yeah, I could see that. The Nightingale, everybody said they cried at that one. I didn't like that one. I don't like Kristen Hanna. Yeah, I don't like Kristen Hanna. She's overrated.
What is the most devastating book that made you cry the most of all the books you've ever read? For me personally, it would have to be. Why don't you go first? Because I'm trying to remember the title. I should remember this by now, right? I'm trying to think. But who wants to go first there?
Salt to the Sea.
I read this middle grade book called The Miraculous. And you basically follow the storyline of a little boy who he has a little sister and she dies 8 days after being born. And you follow his struggle and his family's struggle of dealing with the death of the 8-day-old baby and his loss in believing in miracles. And like you see the depression and how it hits the mother and the father differently, and then how it affects the entire household. I read it in one day and I spent majority of the time crying while reading it because this kid he's like 10 and he's like, I don't believe in miracles. I don't believe in happiness. I don't believe in anything because it doesn't exist because my baby sister is gone. And I was just like, this is a lot. But I think it's a good book for children. Since it is middle grade, I think, especially since there are children who go through that kind of scenario. But yeah, that was the one that I cried the most in.
I have to look. Hold on.
For me, I think it would Indian Horse. That was the one I was thinking of, by Richard Wagamese. He's a Canadian First Nation.
I love Richard Wagamese. He's fantastic.
Yeah, Indian Horse was one that really got to me. I knew it was written by a First Nations author here in Canada,
it's on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, based on his family's accounts of experiences in the residential schools here in Canada, which is
my god,
definitely a darker part of Canada's past. And
those places still live. Like the troubled teen industry, kind of it descends from that, and I have some experience in that. So if that is a book about the Indian reform schools, yeah, I'm gonna be a mess. So I am adding that to my
just have tissue.
I was practically bawling the first few pages in when he was describing from Indian Horse's viewpoint about what the residential schools were like and what happened there. I was like, it was a tough. I got through it. I just powered through it in one day. It's a short book, but man, that was tough. It actually became one of the most viewed book reviews on my channel.
221 pages. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a heart-wrenching story. Uh, the movie doesn't do it justice. I watched the movie and doesn't do it justice. Not compared to the book. If you're going to read it, be prepared for a cry fest. Listen, you're definitely going to need a big box of Kleenex, probably a few if you try to read it.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
that's loud. What was it? Goodness. What
But
did
yeah, far too many of those reform schools still exist in the U.S. And
Yeah.
they are not great.
no, last one here closed in Canada. I think it was 1992 or 93.
The last one, for the Indigenous people, was technically on paper closed in 1996,
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it was the 90s.
but they still exist.
yeah, like
Yeah.
the troubled teen industry, all
Yeah.
those wilderness programs. Yeah,
Yep.
it's not
Yeah,
a fun
definitely
thing.
I don't read a lot of historical fiction, but that was one of the ones that I had read, mainly because I wanted to know more about it from that community's viewpoint. I've heard a lot about it, but not from that community's viewpoint, just from what we see in like the current school curriculum and things like that. They definitely come a long way here in addressing that, but there's still a lot more work to do here for sure. I don't know how it is down in the U.S. about that, those
It's
types of
even
videos,
worse.
but
Yeah, it's bad.
They don't even get acknowledged. And people want to pretend that they were closed years and years and years ago. I'm like, no, it was 1996.
yeah.
It's not that long ago.
And yes, they really did kidnap those kids essentially and
Yeah.
take them from their
Mhm.
families and force them
Mhm.
into residential schools. Yes, that really happened.
And they
It's
would make them like,
And they made them lose their language because if they
yeah,
if
and they would like anglicize them and make them
Yep.
like sing like 1, little 2, little 3, little Indians.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, they in the school system here now they offer Hokaminam language as part of the curriculum as an option for kids. That's the local Cowichan tribes, First Nations language, Hokaminam. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not, but it's an option that the kids can sign up for and actually learn that language brought into the curriculum now, which is pretty awesome. So that they're definitely doing things to make headway on that. I don't know how
Do
much
you
work,
have like
but
reservations for your First Peoples, or is that just an American thing?
no, they have them here too. The town I'm in, like half the town land is on tribal lands. So I think the system works a little bit differently, but
Yeah, like here
they might.
they get like I know they get free healthcare through like the Indian healthcare services, but it's terrible, and I think they get a pension from the government too, or something like that. Or
This state doesn't even do that. The state that I live in doesn't do that.
wow,
Yeah.
but like the
They're-
land they live on is not necessarily theirs. So if they want to do any like construction, they have to contact the government like just to dig a hole, basically.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, it's all federally regulated here, so they've got treaties with the federal government and land and that kind of thing. But I haven't looked too much into the detail. Each tribe here has a separate individual treaties rather than one as a whole. Thunder.
My house just shook. That was not good.
Not an earthquake, are you? I mean, I'm sitting on top of a crystal plate smashing into another. I mean, a quake could strike anytime here.
Yeah. Well, just a month ago, right across the street, we had lightning hit right in front of the house right across from me.
Jeez, wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh no. And it was like in the middle of the night.
That must have been a nice loud bang.
Oh, yeah. The whole, my roof shook. It was great.
I was in a
Scared the crap out
plane
of me.
once when it got struck by lightning as it was descending into the Toronto airport. That was fun.
Oh
That
wow.
sounds like my worst freaking nightmare because I don't like flying anyway.
I love flying.
Well, the blades are very well insulated, so they're designed to absorb a lightning strike if it happens. So, like, nothing bad happened, but that was a pretty loud bang and flash. That's always fun, right?
In Texas,
so
we have tornadoes. We just passed. It's not really tornado season anymore.
We have tornadoes too in Tennessee, unfortunately. And I've never, as someone who grew up on the East Coast, Upper East Coast, I never had to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like they were like, "You need to get in the basement." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, I hide in.
No.
I go in. This closet right here. That's my tornado shelter.
I have
so
the shower. I hide in my shower.
anybody got any rain for Jenny?
Well, you can take ours because it's been raining every other day here. But kind of on the same vein, the book.
Oh my gosh, I'm sick of the heat. It's not natural for Scotland. Come on, you're in Scotland. Like it was so funny. I posted I don't know if you saw this in my Discord, but I posted. I looked up just out of curiosity cities with the most unbearable summers, and I clicked the link, and before the page loads, all I see is the picture of the Dallas skyline. I live in Dallas.
Yeah.
So it's like there's nothing like a Dallas summer. Like it's.
I lost my air conditioner last week during that heat wave. It was not fun.
Yeah.
It was 99 degrees outside. It was 80 degrees in my house.
Yeah.
I wanted to die.
My parents' house, it seems like their AC goes out once every summer.
Me too. Same one.
Yeah.
It's become a joke. The guy comes out and he's like, again. I'm like, yep.
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 Oh,
and what's funny, you say, send me your rain. I'm sick of the heat. In Texas, the rain is hot.
The rain makes it worse.
Yeah.
It's outside.
Alyssa, where do you live?
California.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know about heat too, probably, but.
Oh, yeah. We're the past couple of days, it's been like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
If
that's
I
40 for you Celsius people.
Yeah. If I don't have my AC on my house because it sits in direct sun from morning till evening, it's never under the sun. My house can get up to 100 degrees inside of it.
Yeah.
2 years ago, my AC broke, and inside the house, it was up to 104 when we were hitting like 116, 119 out here outside. And my landlord was trying to play games, and I was like, this is considered unlivable, so you have to fix it.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, and like as for like weather, rain barely comes anymore. We used to get it a lot when I was younger, but like now it's like when rain happens, everyone's like, it's rain. It exists still, you know? And like we get earthquakes, but where I'm at, we get like a little shake. Like I might be like a picture frame.
I've never been in an earthquake.
I've felt 2 since moving to this island. That's it too. It was so funny. The year we moved here, there was an earthquake late in the year, measured something like 4.8 or something like that. And right after that, everybody started posting these memes of these little plastic chairs falling over the lawn to say, Victoria earthquake, 2015, we will rebuild.
Those are the same kind of jokes they make about California too. Because like one of the other big jokes whenever an earthquake hits is everybody goes online. Did you feel that? I'm in California. Did you feel that? I'm in California. And it's just a joke because like we get told, and like there's certain areas that feel it more because California is so big. But like you can usually, like I said, get like where I'm always at, it's like a shake, and like barely even that, and it's like for half a second, and then you're like, huh.
Was that what I thought it was?
And then you just go on your day.
Yeah.
Well, this island that we're on, it's right at the very edge of and on the edge of the Cascadia subduction zone. So it's capable of producing some pretty massive quakes. So they know something like a massive one's going to hit eventually. When? Who knows? Apparently, it's every 300 to 500 years. The last one was in 1700.
Yeah, they're like, we're due for one. I'm like, no, thanks.
Pretty much. But I mean, usually you don't generally feel them, just the occasional one.
We're
yeah,
turning
it's
into the world's second temperate rainforest. The transformation will be complete when we stay at above 32 all winter in Pennsylvania. It got
I'll
pretty
take
cold.
rain in Pennsylvania.
As someone who's from that area, it's slowly happening. It was my last Christmas home. It was 67 degrees on Christmas Day,
Yeah.
which is not normal for Philadelphia.
no doubt, yeah. Well, everywhere's getting hotter. Like I remember summers used to be a
And then
little
people
bit
say
more
that
chill.
global warming
Winters
isn't
tend
a
to be
thing.
colder. I remember growing up in Alberta, like winters were cold all the time.
Yeah.
It still does get cold, but there's a lot more days above zero in Alberta now than there used to be in the winter when I was growing up. So definitely, it's changing. The only thing we got to
You're
worry
talking
about now
Celsius,
is
though, right, Drew?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Talking, but below 0 Fahrenheit isn't unheard of either.
No.
No.
I don't think I've. So it got really, really cold in like February, where my iPhone was telling me it felt like -4. So
Yep.
I went outside to try to like feel it, and yeah, it's.
Did
really
you get
cold.
the notice that you had to have your water running so your pipes wouldn't explode?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
I never
I
had
don't
to
know if
deal
you
with that
guys.
in Philadelphia, so I was like, wait, what? What do I got to do?
It made national news a few years ago in 2021. The cold snap that
It was
hit North
-10
Texas.
here one night. I was like, I don't understand. I'm confused.
Yeah, I saw some stuff about that up here too. So
Yeah, like I remember, like everything froze. The pipes froze. Some people, like their apartments and their houses flooded because their pipes exploded from the freezing,
Yeah.
and they had to
And
stay
the
in their
infrastructure
car because
down
they
south
lost their
isn't
heat.
built for that.
I
So
mean,
that's why I feel like things just exploded.
well, we lost the electricity too, like because we're on a separate grid. We're not on a national grid. And so the power went out, and like my parents' house didn't lose power. They lost the internet weirdly, but yeah. Other than that, they had power. They had to do something like with their, I don't know. It was weird. I just have this image in my head of them snaking a giant like hose from their kitchen sink down into their pool for some reason. And there was a, like, to break up the ice in the pool, they put a stick in the pool, like a big log.
well, that sounds like fun.
It was pretty apocalyptic.
Yeah. One of the biggest things we got to worry about here, especially in the summer, is forest fires because the town I'm in is in a mountain valley surrounded by forests. And in the summer, it gets really hot and really dry. So forest. So I've kind of tried to make it a habit to make sure my car has lots of gas all the time during forest fire season because I don't want to be rushing to the gas station if we got to leave. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't know if you heard
California.
yeah. I don't know if you heard
California's
of
fires,
Lytton.
like fire us all the time out here because it's just
Have you heard
there's
of
so
Lytton,
much.
BC? Small town in BC here, Lytton. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it literally burned to the ground a couple summers ago. Nothing left of it. Just completely destroyed from forest fires. So it's definitely a risk we got to keep in mind in this gorgeous mountain valley, but literally surrounded by dry forests in the summer. So that's
Alyssa,
about
are
the
you
worst.
up in the hundreds yet out in California?
Yeah, we have last week we hit 2 or 3 days in a row of just 100. We haven't. I think the highest I've seen so far is 105, which is pretty good considering the last couple of years we were getting 116, 119, and 120 and stuff like that. And I actually just checked my weather app to see like what the coming week is going to be, and surprisingly, we're just in the 90s so far. but usually it's usually about late.
We're just now hitting hundreds out here in Dallas.
Yeah, it's usually about like late July when we start getting the really, really high hundreds. And then it continues and extends. It used to, growing up, a good indicator for me of like when summer was finally like leaving was around like October, because it would always rain during Halloween. Now it's like, it's sweltering at Halloween.
It's gross.
It is.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I have to pop off.
Oh, that's okay. I was about to wrap things up anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. That's a good place to end it, I think. We've been having a great chat. We started talking about books and then, whatever, but that was the whole point, just to chat and hang out. So thank you everyone for joining me. I'll be sure to update the description with the links to everybody's channel here after we end the stream. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you all for being here with me today while I just, do something to do while, my wife is off with the kids out of town having their girls trip. So thank you so much. And it's been fantastic conversation, and we'll definitely do this again sometime. So with that in mind, we're signing off, and, hit us up on the Discord. I'll make sure that's linked below as well. And bye-bye, everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.